So for this lesson, you're going to be examining the prologue, which is the very first part. You can think about it as the teaser for Romeo and Juliet. And it gives us the scene or the setting of what the play will be about, which is also called foreshadowing. So it's a hint at what is to come in the play as we meet these other characters and as they progress through the plot. So our learning outcomes for this lesson will be 1, to understand the prologue and what it means in relation to Romeo and Juliet's play as a whole, as we develop annotation skills or marking up the text and answering questions. And then we can start to understand a little bit more about the battle between the Capulets and the Montagues and this blood feud that they have between them, which is built upon revenge and hatred. So as your starter, and you'll see in Canvas on your Canvas assignment, based on the video that we watched, based on what we've learned about Shakespeare so far, answer this question, which is, what do you already know about the play's plot and characters? So remember, a plot is the sequence of events or actions that take place in a story. So you have the beginning, you usually have then rising action or complications, a climax or the most intense part of a story, the falling action or what happens after the climax, and then the denouement or the conclusion or resolution, which is the ending part where things get tied together with a nice bow. And remember that characters are the people in a story. And then to learn a little bit more about the prologue, we're going to break down exactly what it means for something to have a prologue in general. So the play begins with this prologue, which introduces the topic of the play and hints at what is to come. As I mentioned, this is what we call foreshadowing. A prologue may introduce the setting, preview the characters, or establish a theme, which is the author's message for the work. In this case, the prologue is written in the form of a sonnet, which is a specific structure of poem, and it gives us a lot of information, many details about the family feud or fight, and what we should expect to see in the play as it continues. With your partner, you're going to annotate the prologue in your Canvas assignment. And what this means is you're going to answer specific questions about what the prologue means and what is happening within it. And I'll highlight some of those features as we go through this lesson. So firstly, to read the prologue. 2 households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge breaking to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these 2 foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventures piteous overthrows, do with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's then knot and remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage, the which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So basically, 2 homes, both of higher class and morals, in the town of Verona, where this play takes place, from an ancient grudge between 2 families leads to new violence, where hands that belong to the upper class or polite society are also those which are the most violent, where because of fate and by way of family lines, there are 2 opposing forces or enemies. There's a pair of lovers who are met by fate, and they end up taking their life or killing themselves. This misadventure or this bad luck is thrown over with the parents' death, parents' burial of their death, and the story of this rage, of this blood, and of this forbidden love is the content of this 2-hour long play. And Shakespeare is asking, if you listen with patient ears, you will start to understand a little bit about why we are learning this story and what types of ends we should mend and make better. So we want to think about, when we're looking at this prologue, these specific questions. So remember, is foreshadowing means to hint at something that is to come. So when we're reading this line, for with civil blood makes civil hands unclean, what is this telling us is going to happen in the next pages of the story? What about these people from polite society, from good families, from money? What type of behavior are they going to exhibit or show to the audience? Second question is, what is Shakespeare revealing? And why do you think that he's telling us this very important detail from the beginning? So when we were watching the film and when we were first studying the plot of the play and learning a little bit more about Shakespeare, you might not have realized that Romeo and Juliet were going to take their own lives or were going to commit suicide. However, this is something that Shakespeare reveals within the first 6 lines of the play. So why do you think that he's giving us these details, and what is the effect for us, the readers, knowing this really valuable and vital piece of information to begin with? The third question is based on this idea of traffic of our stage. So if you've ever been to a play, or if you've ever seen a movie that takes place in a big city, you'll notice that there's a lot going on. And in this prologue, Shakespeare is saying that this 2 hours worth of coming and going of characters moving about is similar to traffic, right? And so I want you to think about, what comparisons can we make between this jostling or this rushing back and forth between characters and the action or the pace of the play and the speed at which things take place. So now that we have a basic understanding of what the prologue is saying and how it's saying it, we also need to consider how this would be performed for an audience. So what kind of gestures or actions or tone of voice would reinforce what is being said? How could someone make this foreshadowing more poignant or piercing or relevant to those people who would be watching this in the theater? Luckily for us, there are a lot of film clips of what this could look like. And this is actually a clip from the film called Shakespeare in Love. And there's a character who has a speech impediment, and he performs the prologue. But what I want you to pay attention to is, while you are watching this character perform these lines of the prologue, what do you notice about the way the character speaks? How does he deliver his lines? Improvements could be made to his performance so that the weight of these words, of these details of characters ending their own lives, would be more impactful for a watching audience. And then if you're following along in Canvas, you're going to click this link and it's going to provide the video. So you have seen an example. We have understood what the prologue is saying. And now you are going to work with a partner to prepare your own interpretation of this prologue. You can do it in the same genre, and I'll explain what that means when we're in class, or you could do it in a different register genre. speaking, for example, in contemporary English, like I'm speaking to you now. You'll submit an audio recording through Canvas, and I'll show you how to do that. At the end of your Canvas assignment, you'll be asked, what did you learn from the prologue? And why, again, do you think that Shakespeare begins with giving us all of these spoilers?